Now that I've had my Bambu Lab P2S 3D printer for a while, I wanted to share with you some of the print projects I've been working on, some of the things I've been printing, and basically what I've been doing with it besides just staring in amazement at how fantastic it is. Now I've been sticking mostly with a lot of practical prints, especially having a super capable printer like that for the first time pretty much ever. I've been able to kind of knock out a lot of projects and sort of quality of life improvements just in my office and around the house that have been super nice. So the first thing that I've been working on has been kind of GridFinitying, using the GridFinity system on a lot of my drawers and camera organization. If you've been printing for a while, you're probably familiar with GridFinity, but what it is, you have a grid, a plate. I've been using these really thick ones. There's like really, I don't like the little flimsy ones. I had those for a while, I don't like them. These thick ones are cool, and I'll put a link to the generator I use to make them because you can do all kinds of different little specifications like these. This one has spots for magnets, so you can put magnets in there, and then you can print stuff that actually has slots for magnets here, and then they will magnet together more. This is sort of a test piece, so I didn't end up using it. But what GridFinity does is it lets you can do this in kind of any size, and you print out different bits that have, you know, grids on the back and they interlock. And in this case, this was for a camera lens because that was kind of the first thing I did was I redid my camera lens drawer, which was already like nicely organized, but I made it so much more efficient. Like not only can I see everything and it just looks better, but I was able to condense 3 different drawers of stuff into one drawer with room to spare. And that's where I kind of saw the power of this in a space like this where space is limited. That's kind of my like magnum opus for my GridFinity is my lens drawer. And then I even printed some of these like spacers. These are sort of just blank spacers. I love the texture that the P2S has. And so in there's sort of these blank spots because there's extra spots. So for now they're just empty, but I can remove these and then replace them with different size containers and bins and things. And that has been absolutely incredible. I also did that with some of my audio gear over here with my GoPro drawer. I've never had my GoPro gear well organized because if you use a GoPro, there's tons of little bits and things. So it's kind of hard to keep those organized. A philosophy that I've heard behind GridFinity is it's not necessarily about making stuff compact, but it's about being able to see everything. So sometimes what you'll notice, like here's a container I made for a webcam. This is a pretty compact webcam, but it's a 2x2 thing. So this is probably bigger than it needs to be for the webcam. I mean, you can see all the like empty space right here, but being able to see it and access everything really easily is super nice. But I tried not to go too overboard. Like with GoPro, you have all these little, you know, little knobs and adapters. I didn't want to do a separate container for each of those. So sometimes I just stuck with regular, good old fashioned bins. You pile stuff in there and it just, you know, you kind of have to find the balance between making everything, you know, bespoke for each individual item and then just kind of being practical with it. GridFinitying all this stuff out, and that took a long time to figure out, design, print, test, all that stuff has been cool. Some of them were just kind of basic things, like this was a pre-existing design for Sony lenses. So basically, before I had all my lenses laying down like this, which looked really cool, but takes up a lot of space, and now what I can do is you have this, and then the lens just fits right in there, and then you've got your lens standing, and it just makes it super easy to see everything, super easy to grab everything. I did have to kind of organize everything in those drawers in sort of an unusual looking way because the lenses, some of them have lens hoods or they're oddly shaped and you can't put them next to each other without them bumping into each other. So you sort of have to like stagger and space things in a weird way. And then also just for the practicality of like grabbing the lenses out, you don't want to be trying to like maneuver in between stuff. You want to be able to just see the lens you need, grab it, put the lens back. So when you look at that drawer, it's not like perfectly, everything's like perfectly gridded out. It's in a way that actually makes sense for the lenses that I have and the way that I use them, you know, taking them in and out of that drawer. One thing I was really proud of is I got a new webcam and it came in this little package right here, you know, like in the cardboard box that it came in. And I realized this package would fit nicely in a little 2x2 GridFinity bin. So that was pretty neat. I do not have great 3D design skills, but I figured I got some CalPERS. I have a perfect template here. Can I do some basic measurements and try to, you know, recreate that? And I did. And now the webcam can just go right in here, and I even put in little finger slots. And I just did this all in Tinkercad. So that was pretty fun. I think it took like two iterations to get it right, which is pretty good. And I've also really enjoyed, especially for bins, printing in this two-tone thing where I just use layer painting in Bambu Studio, which is very cool. You just sort of, you have your model and then you select what color it's going to be, and then you layer paint, and you can just select a width, and you sort of just select the top of it and it will just do another color right there, which when you're doing things like this doesn't produce a lot of waste or take a lot of extra time, because it's basically printing, for the most part, it's just printing all one color and then the second color, and then it did the top layer here. So GridFinity's probably been like the biggest overall project because it's a lot of parts that just took a lot of time to print, but I've also been exploring other materials. I do have this TPU right here, which is the TPU for AMS. So I run everything through my 2 AMS units that I now have, and you can't run just regular TPU through the AMS, and regular TPU, you can get more flexible ones. This one isn't quite as flexible, but it's still pretty bendy. And as someone who's used to like PLA for most of my 3D printing time, it's weirdly flexible. This is a hockey stick holder, which I made for our garage because literally hockey sticks have just been kind of leaning up in the corner and stuff. And this was actually a bit of a learning experience. I printed it in TPU because I thought you're going to be putting hockey sticks in and out of this, and then this is going to bend and flex a lot, so it needs to be flexible. Too flexible though. Even this more rigid TPU, after a couple of days, I hung this up and it was it's kind of regained its shape now, but it was sort of looking like this for a while. And then I realized, oh, not the best material. So I ended up doing it in strong PLA. So not ABS, which might have been the better way to do it, but Bambu has a strong PLA, which is like as ABS as PLA could get. So I reprinted it in that, and it has held up really well, and even taking the sticks in and out has worked well. But I like this as an example of what TPU can do for you. I've always loved boxes like this. This was actually printed on my Prusa Mini, so you can see it has more layer lines and it's a little more visible than the Bambu would be. But little bins like these are kind of the limit of my 3D design capability, but it's fun to use Tinkercad, and then I just wrote in adapters, and that's kind of a cool thing to do. And these are super helpful, so I've been printing kind of more of these types of things, existing designs I already had with the P2S, which has been super helpful. Stuff like this, a phone stand. This is the Neon City filament, which I've talked about in other videos, and I really like it. These little phone stands, probably some of like the best stocking stuffer gifts you can have. We have these just throughout our house, like on the kitchen table, at the counter or whatever, because it's super handy. They also work for small tablets, things like Kindles and e-readers and stuff. There are tons of these out there, but I can put links to the Maker World files for, the specific ones I'm talking about if you want them. This is a fun one for my Elgato Stream Deck. This is the original Stream Deck, and if you've ever used the original Stream Deck, it comes with a stand that I cannot stand because it's super flimsy. It will constantly fall over. So I actually printed this like better stand, which kind of makes it a little more sturdy. And this isn't a Stream Deck that's like at my desk all the time or anything. I usually set it up for specific projects when I need to. And then I put some non-slip pads on the bottom, so when it's on the desk, you can actually push the buttons and it's not just gonna like totally get pushed away. So this is kind of a design that more of the modern Stream Decks are going for. They're kind of like sturdier, but if you have one of the older Stream Decks, you can print something like this to make it a little more stable. Oh, and then speaking of Elgato products, I had to print out some stuff for the prompter. I feel like there's a lot more to explore in the world of the Elgato prompter. So currently, the backplate that I had on here right now is the one, this is an Elgato one, and what this does is it lets you hang the prompter off of a camera lens. But if you don't have a mirrorless camera or a lens that has that, or you want to use other things, here's a couple of cool ones. Here are a couple of cool ones I printed. This first one is actually for an iPhone. There are a lot of different iPhone specific models out there, so you gotta kind of like, if you type in Elgato prompter in Maker World, you could find the one that suits you the best. But basically this kind of has a shelf right here, and then you can slip your phone in. Some of them fit with cases, some of them don't. And now your phone's camera, I don't know if you'll be able to see this in the prompter. You can kind of, oh, actually, look at that, perfectly. You can see that now the phone camera's there, but it's not gonna let light really get in around it, which is pretty cool. So if you want to use the prompter with the phone, you can just do it this way, and then you can just mount the prompter itself on a tripod instead of the way I have it now, where the camera's on a tripod and the prompter's hanging off of that. Now, the other one I printed, this one's really satisfying. I have the YoloCam S3, which if you just want to talk about like a $200 webcam, you don't need PTZ functionality, but you want the best possible image quality from a webcam, this is definitely the way to go. And once you know it, there's a backplate design specifically for this camera. So you can put the camera platform on the prompter. I don't have mine on right now, but then this fits perfectly in there. If I turn it around, look at that. It's like a perfect seal around the lens of the camera. Very similar to kind of the back plates that come by default for like the Elgato webcams. But since this is not an Elgato product, now it has a perfectly fitted backplate for the Elgato prompter. And that is really cool. Have you ever heard of Displate? This sounds like I'm gonna go into a sponsor segment. I'm not. Displate is like metal wall art. This is one that a friend got me, actually Bronson from Audio Hotline, thank you, got me for Christmas this year, which is the Blink-182 logo. It's huge. Thinking that this is where I want to put it, but I'm not 100% sure yet. But my wife Heather also got a Displate artwork for her office a few months ago, and what we learned is that the method that comes with mounting them, they're metal pieces of art and they can actually be mounted to the wall just by magnets, which is very, very cool. It makes it easy to take them on and off, to kind of like position them perfectly. But they come with these. If you've ever used Displate, it's supposed to stick to your wall, and then the magnet has adhesive on it, so you stick the magnet here, and that way you can hang it without damaging your wall. Well, this only works if you have a perfectly smooth wall. We have, textured walls like most houses, at least most American houses have textured walls, so these don't work. It'll stick for a little bit, but I think Heather's, after like 2 days, it peeled off and fell down. The good thing about 3D printing, if you're somebody who has encountered a problem, someone else has probably encountered it and found a solution for it. So once you know it, there are little magnet holders you can print specifically for Displate. So I rehung Heather's artwork. It's been a while now, and it's been 2 months. It hasn't fallen down, which is really, really cool. And so what these are, they're basically just little holders for the magnet. So now instead of sticking it to this sticky sheet, you adhere the magnet in here, and then it just has regular, screw holes or nail holes. You do have to then screw it or nail it into your wall. But when you're dealing with a heavy piece of metal like this, heavy metal, you kind of want to be safe with it. And then this works really well. And you don't have to be super precise, like I said, because they're just magnets. So you just put them kind of where you think you want the artwork, and then the artwork will stick to it, and you can kind of slide it up, down, left, right to make sure it's exactly how you want. So that's really cool. If you have Displate artwork, use these instead of the thing that comes with it for sure. Very proud of this. This is another, I don't want to say it's an original design, but I had to copy an existing design. So I added this tube light, this rope light to my office a while ago, and I did that because my wife Heather has one in her office. It's great, and it's from Govee. It's a really cool light that's like made to go in the corner, all different colors, doesn't flicker on video. But one of the things I really liked about hers was that it came with these little clips that made it super easy to mount. In the time that she bought hers to the time I bought mine, they changed their system, and now it only has adhesive on the back, and it doesn't come with any of the plastic clips anymore, which was kind of a reason I chose it, because it was so easy and reliable to mount. I don't really trust adhesives that much. So I was able to take one of her clips and then measure it out and do my best to replicate it in Tinkercad, and it actually works. So this is, again, TPU, so that way it's flexible enough to put the light in or out, but it holds it there, still holds it steady. And now, even though they don't make these anymore, I can still mount that tube light or that rope light the same way that I wanted to originally. I'm very proud of this. It solved the problem. I put this on Maker World because, again, one person has the problem, other people probably have the problem too. There are a few other things that I can't show you because they're physically not here, but Heather and I both now have, check this out. Do I need to adjust the television in here? There's a remote. Do I need to adjust my PTZ webcam? Here's my OBSBot remote. How did I get those? They're just mounted under my desk right here. So I found remote holders. It's actually specifically for the OBSBot remote, but they fit, other small remotes. This is like a Roku TV remote. I can just put that right there under my desk. Have a couple in my wife's office as well. Super nice just to keep the remotes out of the way, organized, located awesomely. So speaking of Roku TV, let's talk about Apple TV. One of my favorite things I printed is an Apple TV holder. So in our living room, there's an Apple TV, it's just kind of always in the way. You know, it's just sort of down there on the TV stand. It kind of gets bumped and moved. You have to it's just kind of annoying. So I printed a holder that then lets you just basically attach it to one of the VESA mounts on the back of your TV, and then the Apple TV is out of the way. It's not visible. It doesn't need direct line of sight to the remote, and it still works great. But speaking of the Apple TV remote, if you have an older Apple TV, you might have encountered this. One of the worst pieces of product design known to man. This is the worst remote you could probably ever make. You don't know where the top of the bottom is. The top is a touchpad, the bottom is not a touchpad. There's no way to differentiate. It's super annoying. They fixed it, and the newer Apple TVs have a better remote. But if you have an older Apple TV that has this remote, I was able to print a holder for it, which also then lets you feel where the top and the front of the remote is. So now you can just pick up the remote like you would expect, like any remote, and feel how it's supposed to work. And this is in the translucent teal filament, which actually is the perfect shade of teal, as you can see from my San Jose Sharks hoodie. I love this filament because it's a great color, but it also reminds me of early 2000s transparent tech. So another thing I printed, which is very, very helpful, not my design, one that I found, is for my Hollyland Lark wireless audio system. I printed this holder for it. The system itself comes with a little case, but this is what has made it a little difficult to travel with. This has 2 microphones in it and then a camera receiver, but you also have these little receivers here. One is USB and one is Lightning. So these are for phones, laptops, tablets. And then you also have microphone cables and clips and stuff like that. And all of those little bits have to be put in your bag separately. So it actually makes traveling with this very compact, really cool mic system a little bit of a hassle. And so what this case does is it gives you space to specifically store these. And then on the back, you can hold the mic clips, and the mic clips can clip the mic cable if that's what you're going to use. And so now you just have to put this one thing in your bag, and it has everything enclosed with it. And it just added a lot of usability and a lot of practicality to this setup. Of course, I've also printed, you can't have a 3D printer and not print figurines and stuff. So I've done actually a lot of these little repo semi-bots, which are cool because they articulate, the arms move, and even the eyes move. And these are cool because they print, it's just one plate, and it prints the eyes first, which have white and black, and then it goes over and prints the body, which is the legs screw into the bottom, then you have the body itself, the arms snap on, and then you have, the face, and the eyeballs just pop in there in the face. It's a cool little print. And that's also one of my favorite video games ever. And then I printed this one. This was a tougher one to get going, but this is Princess Donut from the Dungeon Crawler Carl book series. I did pink and then the Neon City filament here. This one took a long time, and it prints with kind of a cool support that snaps off there, but she's made to sort of hang on the edge of books or the edge of shelves or something. It's kind of a cool design. Great book series. If you haven't read it, 10 out of 10 do recommend. Just like I 10 out of 10 do recommend having fun with the stuff that you're printing and checking out some practical prints. I will link to this stuff that I've printed if you see anything here that you're like, oh, that'd be cool. Some of it, a couple of them are my own design. Most of them are not. And I'd also love to know what you print with your printer, or if you have any recommendations, seeing kind of me and my workflow and my setup. If you think there's something that you should definitely print this, let me know, and I would definitely love to print that.